Ok, ciao, buonasera e buongiorno. Manu here. Oh, my English is gone today. Good morning, everybody, or good evening, everybody. Welcome to week 4 Q&A webinar, and I'm gonna get started just in a couple of minutes, as usual. Just the first checkups to check who's on the line and whether you can hear me and you can see me all right. There's the usual 1-minute delay. So let's see what's going on. How's everybody doing? So first of all, I have to apologize again because the technology it's a little bit hard to work with technology, I realized, but it looks like now the webinar system is sending the emails out, which is great because it wasn't before. But I noticed that it's only sending them on the hour, which means it told you that we were live half an hour early because it doesn't understand 9:30 p.m. So it sent the email at 9 p.m. So I'll look into that and probably change it back to a on the dot time so that the emails match our actual event. I'm sorry, I hate to waste your time. So I know time is precious, so I like to make it work for everybody. So let me know if you can hear me, and I'll wait a couple of minutes before I start answering your questions. And then, of course, it's an open mic session. You can always ask questions, and as we progress, you can dig deeper and deeper. Now, today, this week's topic is directions. No, sorry. Yes. No, it's not directions. Sorry, I'm a bit confused. It's public transport. So terminology to catch buses and to buy tickets and stuff like that. And then we have hotel booking. Now, the content is quite fresh. We talked about hotel rooms on Tuesday, so you've only had a day or so to play with it. If you had time to cover it. If you haven't, that's totally fine. You can ask me questions next week. It's totally fine. So let's have a look at what's going on, and hopefully you can hear me and you can ask me questions. I do have a couple of questions to start with. So let's have a look. So I can see Ed is on the line. Buonasera, Ed. And buongiorno, Graham. Buongiorno. So let me start. I think the delay is a bit longer, so I don't want to keep you waiting. So let me assume that you can hear me, and hopefully you can. And let's talk about what you asked me. The first question was from Graham, and it's about grammar. So you want to know, in the word "o," as in I have, spelled H-O, and in other words such as hotel, spelled H-O-T-E-L, what is the purpose of the letter H when it's not pronounced? Why is the H not omitted and the word shortened to simply start with O? Great question. And there is no real need for the H. So as you figured it out, in Italian, H is always silent. You have seen, let me type a few things here, and all right. So you have seen H really in 3 occasions so far. So that's one occasion. Let's put it on the same line. You may have seen it in the gegi, but probably not so much. But so these are the 3 main times when you have seen H. So in the first 2 examples, it's used in the spelling of the K sound and the G sound. That's because of the Italian spelling rules. You can't have, there's no other way of writing K and Ki. If we had K, we would, but we don't. So That's the first purpose of H. It's only there to alter the previous sound, in that case, the C letter. So we have K, K, Ko, and Ku spelled C-A, C-O, C-U, which is totally transparent, like English. But then we have K and Ki, which you must throw in the H, but you don't pronounce it. Obviously, you wouldn't say K. Okay, so that's the first thing. Similarly, this applies to Ge and Gi. Again, it's there to make the G letter sound G, just like you do Ga, Go, and Gu, G-A, G-O, and G-U. To have the Ge and Gi, you have to throw in H. So that's the easy part. It's not pronounced, but it's performing a role. Like it is altering a sound, so it's easier to understand. But then we saw it in the verb avere, like that, avere. And let me just refresh the questions in case you have questions. Please do let me know if you can hear me. I still haven't received a... Yes, okay, perfetto. All right, so the third time we've seen it was with the verb avere. Now, avere is spelled H-V-E-R-E, avere. But when we conjugate it, we say I have, and we say O, and it is spelled with a H. Why? That's your question. Why is it spelled with H? Well, for two reasons. The first one is the origin of the word, which is avere from Latin, which is with a H, which is the reason why we have in English, from the Latin avere with a H. So the etymology of to have is with a H. As the Italian developed, we realized, yeah, we don't like H, we're not going to pronounce it anyway. So we got rid of it. But why do we still keep it in io ho, tu hai, lei ha, and loro hanno? Why? Because it's purely to maintain a distinction. Sorry. Actually, let's clean it up like that. So the only reason we maintain it in spelling is because Italian has matching words that without the H would be other words. For example, O spelled with a H means I have, and O without the H means or, this or that. I means you have when it's got the H, and I means to the when it doesn't have the H. A with the H means you have or he or she has, but A by itself means to or at. And then anno means they have when it's got the H, and anno means year when it doesn't have the H. So it's only a grammatical thing. First of all, when you pronounce it, you're not going to pronounce it anyway, so there is no difference between anno with the H and anno without the H in sound. In spelling, now, it's not, probably you're not going to be writing, so don't worry too much about it, but the reason why we must have it in writing is that we must be saying the right word. We must be writing the right word. Are we saying they have, or are we saying year? Are we saying I have, or are we saying or? So it's only there to really make the word correct grammatically. So you can't get rid of it because you would be saying the wrong things. Like you would really be incorrect. Now, uneducated Italians do that. They will spell I have without the H because they can't hear it. But it's a sign of low education for Italians. Now, the other case that you wanted to discuss was, well, how about words like hotel? Could we just ditch the H because we don't pronounce it? Well, in theory we could, but it's a foreign word. And so it entered the Italian language like that, H-O-T-E-L. We just pronounce it the way we would in Italian. We pronounce it the way we can pronounce it, but the spelling can't change, really. Sometimes, it has happened. It really depends on how old the word is and how recent the introduction is. if it was introduced in recent years when we have mass media, a word that enters Italian language will enter as it is and will be as it is, because we're so global now that it would just look awful to have hotel without the H. So it just really, it's got to do with probably well, sometimes the grammar, the etymology of a word, and in this case it's got to do with, it just looks weird. It just looks weird to have it without the H. So in terms of spelling, if you care about writing, you must have the H anytime there is a H in an Italian word, even if it's foreign. Okay. Now, for example, so you might say, but yeah, but how about hospital? You don't use H in Italian. Yes, but we say ospedale, which is an Italian word. So, you know, and the English word hospital comes from Latin Italian. So you're not comparing the same thing. When you look at ospedale, that's an Italian word which exists without the H. It was born without the H. And so we keep it without the H. Another example, I think I would have, and I just left my mind, so I can't give you the example that I was thinking about. But so that's the first question for, was it Graham? Grazie mille. I hope that answered your question. So in terms of applications, when you speak, because the H is silent, we do pronounce that word as hotel. So if we had to say the hotel, like we would use L apostrophe, because that's the article that we use for words that start with a vowel. So you might say, but it doesn't start with a vowel. But Italian chooses the article based on the sound, not based on the looks of it. So if it's easier to pronounce, we're going to use that article. So because the word starts with a vowel sound, we're going to treat it as a vowel word. So l'hotel. Like we'll say un hotel. We're not going to say uno hotel or lo hotel or stuff like that. We treat it as a word that starts with a vowel. And I think that's the main thing that you want to take away. You know, you're probably not going to be writing a lot. All right, so that's the first question. So now I have a question from Ed. I'm not sure if you sent 2 questions, because it says another taxi question. I'm not sure if you referred to another meaning on top of what I said, or maybe you sent me a first question and I didn't get it. So your question is, we can ask the taxi driver how much the fare will be. So, quanto per andare a... So, buongiorno, scusi. You know, you get to the window. Buongiorno, scusi. Quanto per andare al Circeo? It's a place. Quanto per andare a Piazza di Spagna? So, quanto per andare a would be how much to get to. So that's the expression that I talked about in the videos. So your question is, but if he or she does not start the meter when we drive off, would it be proper to say avviare il tassometro? So avviare il tassometro. If not, what should we say? Okay, so yes, you could. Now, because of the way taxis work, they are based on distance and time. So apart from being overall not totally honest people, I'm sorry, I don't want to generalize ever, but yes, okay, so taxi drivers in Italy are not going to be the most honest. They're not honest with anybody, especially with a tourist. So but they can't really give you an exact figure, because they don't know how much traffic they're going to find. So even an honest one, which, you know, who knows the distance and who's going to go straight to the destination without taking you onto a loop, they still can't give you an exact quote. So they should always start the meter, unless, depending on which city you are, unless the council has set rates for the airport. That's the only time when they could not start the meter because it's a set rate, and it's go like from the CBD to the airport, $50. Now you have to ask maybe the hotel where you're staying if that's the case. Every city is different, but overall, they should start the meter. So if they don't start it, well, the meter is il tassometro. Great, Ed, you looked it up. Perfetto, il tassometro. And avviare is the best way to start something like the meter. So it's perfect. Avviare il tassometro. Now, of course, in terms of the way you express it, avviare il tassometro can sound a little bit harsh. Now, the correct way of giving an order in Italian is pretty much, you can use the present tense, it's right most of the time. So, avviare is the verb. So, io avvio, lei avvia. Yeah, avvia. So, to give an order in Italian, which sounds already polite, is avvia il tassometro, which means start the meter. So it's an order, but it's polite. It sounds polite because of a number of reasons I'm not telling you. Now, of course, you're going to add per favore anyway. So that could be a way, avvia il tassometro per favore. It could still sound a little bit weird, like you're telling me to do something. So a nice way to always soften an order in Italian is by making it negative. So it's like saying, aren't you starting the meter? Like, oh, I'm curious, why? Like, it's like, I'm not telling you start the meter, I'm saying, aren't you starting the meter? Much better way of giving an order in Italian. So, non avvia il tassometro? Scusi, non avvia il tassometro? Excuse me, aren't you starting the meter? Which would make them have to give you a reason. And they might say, oh no, è tariffa fissa. They might say something like, oh, they might say tariffa fissa, it's a fixed rate. That's the case of the airport, for example, in some places. But yeah, that would be the way to make them notice that you noticed that they haven't started the meter. So I hope this helps. Well, if not, what should we say? Well, if they don't start it and it's not, so you could say, so let's say you say non avvia il tassometro, and they say no. Then you might say, ah, è tariffa fissa. Oh, it's a fixed rate. To which, if they say sì, then you just say, they told you it's $50, it's fixed rate, so you're gonna pay $50. So that's one way. If it's not tariffa fissa, then you can say, then you would say, just make it like that. Oh, avvia il tassometro per favore. Please start it. So, you know, Italian, it's easy because questions and statements are the same. So you could say, oh, per favore, avvia il tassometro. Please start it. That doesn't mean they're not going to rip you off, because there's all the extra surcharges that you don't know about. So, but that's the safest way to catch a taxi. Now, talking about public transport, again, it depends on where you are. But if you're in a big city like Rome, do not discard public transport. It's convenient, it's cheap. In many cases, it's free if you do like the Italians. I'm not saying you should, but and it does go everywhere. Now, the underground trains, the Metropolitana, in Rome, it's limited because of there's only 2 lines. They're going to tell you that there's 3, but there's really 2, and one is an extension of the second one. So there's 2 lines. But the beauty is that buses will take you pretty much everywhere. It might take you some time, but honestly, a taxi, because of the amount of traffic, might take just the same amount of time. So in most cases, I would rely on public transport. Taxis would be convenient if you go into a really remote location that there's no way to get to, so you might, you know, catch the train to a station and then catch a taxi to get to the final destination. Let's say you have to go to Ciampino. Ciampino is the second airport in Rome. Well, there's not enough buses to go straight to the airport, but there are trains and buses to go to Ciampino station, which, you know, it's €1. You get to the station. Then from Ciampino station, you can catch a taxi to the airport, which is going to cost you, you know, $15 because it's really close. Whereas if you catch the same taxi from your hotel in central Rome, it might cost you 100. So that's another way of doing it. That's, if you're trying to save to save your money. The other thing is, I had this. I don't know if I mentioned this in the video, but I think it's a really cool story. I have this American student at the university, and she came back from a holiday in Italy, and she had a great time, and she was telling me about it. And then she said, "But the taxi drivers, it was such a scam because we got to Roma Termini, which is the station, the main station, and we had to get to the hotel, and so we caught a taxi, and it cost us so much money. It was like crazy, $100 to go to Piazza di Spagna." I said, "Hold on, your hotel was in Piazza di Spagna?" "Yeah." "Why didn't you catch the metro?" "The underground runs till late. It's not 24-hour, but I think it stops at midnight." "So what time did you land?" It was like 10. We're at the station at 10 o'clock. "But there's like 3 stops from Termini, the station, to Piazza di Spagna, and the subway stops right there. You get out of the subway and you're in Piazza di Spagna. So why didn't you do that?" And her answer really meant a lot to me. She said, "Well, because she's American. So, well, because where we come from in America, we would never feel safe catching the subway at night with luggage." So, interesting. That's not the case in Italy. You're safe. You're safe. In most cases, you are safe in Italy. Catch the subway, and you'll be fine at night. There's a lot of people. There's cameras. It's not a dangerous place. Be still mindful. Hold on to your luggage so that nobody getting off will run away with it. But it's not going to happen. Okay, so but yeah, you can rely on public transport in most cases. Now, of course, if you're staying in a small regional town and there's no real public transport, you may need to rely on taxis a lot more. But because the distances are short, they will tend to be a lot more honest because it's a little town. A lot of people do rely on taxis in those places because there's no public transport. So that would be my advice. Okay, I have another question. Let me see what that is. Salve Manu, thank you for the information on buying tickets for the different trains. How often are there transit strikes in Italy? I am thinking of taking the Frecciarossa, but I need to be sure it is running or I will not be able to get to my flight home to the US. How reliable is it overall? Is there a way to check on transit in Rome, a general website that has travelers alerts? Yes, great question. So what Laurie is talking about is this. Sciopero. Sciopero is a strike. Italy being a socialist country, they have strong, really strong unions, and Italians will fight, will complain about what's going on. This means there's a lot of strikes. There's a ton of strikes. They're not predictable. They are, how often? It depends on how the political climate. When Berlusconi was in power, because most Italians weren't happy, there were a lot of strikes because everybody had a reason to complain about something. So strikes were frequent. Now there's been a change in government. It seems a little bit better, but of course there's always reasons to complain, especially when a country is struggling like Italy is or Europe is. So there will be strikes. They're really not easy to predict. Most cases, they're announced 2 or 3 days prior. So it can happen anytime. The good thing about strikes is this. There's always guaranteed, there's guaranteed journeys, and certain types of transport will still run. For example, let's say there's a public transport strike. They still guarantee any train before 9 a.m. and any train between 4 and 6, for example. So even during the strike, they will run the trains. If they have to kill rides, they will kill the regional ones and maintain the long distance ones. If they have to kill the long distance ones, they will kill them but maintain the expensive routes like Frecciarossa. So overall, you can't really be sure and safe about there's not going to be a strike. There might be a strike. My advice would be, if your flight, let's say you know your flight is on Thursday at 5 o'clock. Well, organize your journey from Roma train station to the airport. There's a train that goes straight to the airport, which is the one you're mentioning. Are you talking about Frecciarossa? Yeah, because you're not going to be in Rome. Organize it so that it's not a last minute thing. You're better off getting to Rome in the morning and hang out for the day if you want to feel safe, so that you know that if your train is delayed or whatever, you're still in Rome. That's one way. The other way, that's so trenitalia.it or .com is the site for the company that runs the trains. So you would be able to find an alert there that will let you know that there's a strike coming up. In most cases, I mean, every tourist has experienced a strike in Italy, but in most cases, it's not a huge disruption unless you have to catch an airplane. So do check in advance, and my advice would be there half a day before. So if you can, so flight in the evening, get there in the morning. So plan to be there in the morning, and you hang out in Rome for a couple of hours if you're there early. It's a little bit safer, but overall, I think because it's a Frecciarossa that you are relying on, they tend to not really cancel those rides because they're money producing. They're very, they're expensive trains. They are for business people who have to get to the other city very quickly. So overall, you're kind of safe in a way. So that's my advice. Now, I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more questions? Please type your question in the chat box. While you do that, I'd like to make an announcement, which I will share later on via email with everybody, even students who are not here watching this broadcast or who will not watch it afterwards. And it's this. One of the bonuses, I've decided to change one of the bonuses. So I was going to offer a webinar or a workshop on When in Rome, which was a cultural webinar. But I realized a lot of the things that that webinar covers have come up already, and they will continue to come up. But I realized there's going to be a lot more value for you to have a week 6. So next week is week 5, which is the last week, where we talk about conversation and making conversation as small talk and starting a conversation and do that kind of socializing thing, and we'll polish your pronunciation and stuff like that. But what I thought we will do is we'll have a week 6 where there's going to be many live sessions. They'll be at different times so that everybody can participate. Now, there are times where it's just impossible for me to do it because it's in the middle of the night and I can't really serve you because I'll be sleepy, so I wouldn't do a good job at that. So within early in the morning to late in the evening, I will try and serve all of you and have different sessions during the 1 week where we will practice and ask me questions live. And I think there's going to be a lot more value in having 3 or 4 live sessions throughout the week, even 5, where we can talk about anything and I can serve you even individually. I'll be happy to even serve you individually. If there's only one person, well, then we'll do a one-on-one where you get to practice and ask me all the questions you have in your mind. So that's the bonus that I'm introducing in the course, and it's week 6, and I hope you will enjoy it. So I'm waiting for questions. If there aren't any, then we will just end the webinar, and I will wait for you in the live chat, which as of now starts in 45 minutes. So depending on, I don't know when we finish the webinar. If you finish it now, then I will see you in 45 minutes. If not, it starts 1 hour and 15 minutes after the webinar started, so that helps you with your time zone. And I will email you the link, and you will also find the link in the Wednesday and Thursday tab for the week. So I'll just wait for a question or not. If you don't have questions, please let me know that you don't have questions, so I know that you've heard me, because I know there's delay in between me and speaking and you hearing it. So do let me know if it's all good for you for now, and then we can chat and speak the things that you need to practice. And you can still ask me questions, obviously, when we are face to face, which is much easier for you, and it's probably much easier for me as well to have you in front of me. I tend to be more inspired when I can see who I'm talking to. So I don't know if the questions page is not. Oh, there are questions. It wasn't loading. Okay. Oh no, that's the same question that has been received twice. So I don't know. I don't seem to have any more questions. I'll wait another minute or two and then see what we can do. Oh, thank you, Laurie. I don't have any questions right now. Your videos are very comprehensive. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If it's okay, if you can just hold on a minute. There's something that I thought I would make a video just out of fun, but I realized probably it's not worth a video for this particular course, but there's something I'd like to show you, if that's okay. So if you just stay on the line for a minute, I'll go grab something and I'll show you something, and we can talk about that for 5 minutes or so. Okay, I'm back. All right, so I just thought it's something of interest. It's definitely not essential for a traveler, but because many of you are not really travelers, you have bigger reasons for going to Italy or for learning Italian, or for starting to learn Italian. Because I hope you realize that this course is, yes, it's simplified and you focus on the functional stuff, but I do like to work on the things that will build your Italian, and by simplifying it, I think it makes it more accessible. When I say the structure is the same as English, so don't worry about it. Well, as you progress, you'll find that there are times when it's not the same and it gets a bit more complicated, but for me to simplify it means it's more accessible to you. You start learning it, you start using it, have fun, and then you can work on it, you can fix it. So there is something that I'd like to talk to you about, which is caffè. Now, I don't know if you are coffee drinkers, but when in Italy, coffee is king, right? Or queen. Italians love their coffee and they will drink it a lot. It's part of the social life. In other cultures, people say, let's go and have a beer. Well, in Italy, they'll say, let's go and have a coffee. And most Italians will have 5 or 6 coffees easily every day. It is an addiction, obviously. So coffee is served in cups. This is a massive cup. Okay, Italian coffee cups are even smaller, so I don't know if you've ever seen them. That's a coffee in Italy, but you don't get a full cup. If you're lucky, you get this much, 1 finger worth of coffee. It's an espresso, but that's how much you get. If you ask for un caffè lungo will get you, if you're lucky, 2 fingers. Okay? That's how much coffee you're gonna get. Then you could say un caffè doppio lungo. In that case, you might get maybe 3 fingers. So it's a caffè doppio lungo. So caffè doppio, it's like 2 shots. And then lungo means long. Oops, sorry. But long, again, it's based on the Italian size of a coffee, so you're not going to get a big mug of coffee. Some places, especially very touristy, they will have caffè americano. They're still going to make it with the espresso machine, but they understand that you want a lot of it. Caffè americano, but it's not very popular. You're not going to find it, really. It's not easy to find. So the best caffè is caffè lungo. But that's the thing I wanted to show you. If you're staying in a hotel with a kitchen or a kitchenette, or in an apartment, you will see this. What the heck is this? Now, probably Laurie, you know what it is because you've been to Italy a few times. Well, that's an Italian's best friend. I think most Italians would love this thing because it's the first thing they do in the morning is this. So that's a coffee maker. It's called moka, questa è una moka, o una caffettiera. So, moka or caffettiera. Questa è una caffettiera. This particular size is good for 4 coffees, 4 or 5 espressos. So you can see how big it is. That's my Samsung Galaxy. So it's as tall as a Samsung Galaxy 5, and it's as thick as well. So if you have one of these in your apartments, a couple of things. It's really fun to use. You would put water in here up to the valve. You don't want to fill it, so up to this point you put water, just clean, fresh water from the tap. You would put the filter in, and then fill it with coffee powder. Coffee powder you find in the supermarket. Lavazza, Illy are the best ones. Lavazza and Illy. So even if in your country you can buy Lavazza, which is okay priced, and Illy, which is crazy expensive, but that's the best coffee. When you fill it, you want to push it in a little bit, but you don't want to compress it like you would do at a bar, at a cafe, at an espresso machine. You just want to push it lightly. How much should you put? It should be like a little dome, a little mountain coming up a little bit, not too much. So maybe in this case, you would have maybe 3-4 tablespoons. That would be enough. You close it. We're just gonna push it in a bit more. Put it on the stove. Now, if you have gas, it's gonna be on a flame. You can put it on high and keep it open. And as the coffee starts coming up, you'll see it comes out from there. That's when you have to lower the flame to the lowest possible. It has to be the lowest flame you can possibly have. That's because you want the water to come up slowly and really infuse the coffee powder and make you a really thick espresso. Now, what to do with this afterwards is vital. You want to wash it, just rinse it under water, but never ever use detergent on this. You will ruin the flavor of the coffee that this thing produces. So one of the things that drives Italians crazy, if you are Laurie, especially you because you hang out with Italians, is to see people wash this with soap. They will freak out if you put any soap on this or any detergent. They'll hit you. Don't do that. So just rinse it with water. So you might say, yeah, but that's gross. Yeah, that's a clean one because I hardly ever make coffee. So I'll just rinse it. But just rinse it with your fingers. It will build up, ugly, yucky thing, but that's how it is. That's what makes good coffee. If you wash it too often, then it's going to be metallic, or it's just the soap is just going to stuff up the flavor of your coffee. I thought that was just an interesting thing, but maybe not enough to make a video about it, so I thought I'd just do it now. All right, so let me just check if there are more questions. Otherwise, we can wrap it up and we can see each other in half an hour in the live chat. I used it once at someone's home, and it was I was very confused. That's Laurie. Yes, I know, because when you look at it, that's a really neat thing. But how do I use it? And I think there's not enough information. And many hotels will, with an apartment, many apartments. I mean, all apartments will have one, because it's an apartment in Italy. They must give you una caffettiera. They must give it to you. But yeah, if you don't know how to use it, you might stuff it up. You might rinse it with soap. You might not put enough water, or too much water, or not enough coffee. So I hope this helps you. But that's enough. That's it for now. Okay, grazie mille. So I will see you in half an hour. So 10:45 Universal Time, which means simply half an hour from now, pretty much. Okay, and I will send you an email with the link, and also you will find it on Wednesday and Thursday page for this week to launch your Zoom application, and we'll be practicing public transport. You'll be buying tickets from me, and then we'll be checking in. Even if you haven't had time to look into the check-in, we'll do it. Okay, grazie mille, e a fra poco. I hope you can make it. Ciao, ciao.